strategic so that I could talk afterwards. I'm going to connect this. In many ways, I want this to be a message almost to them for you. Like when you go to a wedding and you just hear a great message to the bride and groom, and yet it's for everyone, but it's targeted at them. Those are some of my favorite, and I think there's a little bit of that for us today. Here's what I'd like to do. I kind of want to frame first a little lighthearted illustration. I don't know if I've shared this before, but did any of you grew up when like not everyone still got a trophy? God bless that era. I miss that era where like the kids that didn't get anything are just like, I suck a little bit, and I need to work harder. And if I don't learn to work harder, man, 7th grade's rough. What about real life? I think some of the reality is if kids don't learn certain things, life will teach them anyway. At the same time, I used to worry about that too much, like my kid, everybody gets a trophy type of thing. And then I just realized, like, you know what? Life is kind of undefeated at teaching us the lesson that, like, some people are going to exceed and bypass you. So if you're a parent or maybe you're just judgy at the younger generation, Gen Z, you know, maybe just get over it. They're going to learn their lessons one way or the other. And I find that Gen Z has a way of learning lessons I didn't even know you could learn. And so I'm actually quite impressed with them. But here's my experience. My mom and dad are here today. I don't even remember this. Remember when I went to Wesleyan Christian Academy from 3rd through 12th grade? It was an interesting place. There were 49 people in my graduating class. I had a 4.0. I was 26 out of 49 people with a 4.0. 25 of the people ahead of me, all 25 people were males and athletes. So that gives you a taste of just the unhealthy, male-dominated, psychotic, academic and athletic environment that I was raised in. In the midst of that, there was like just a couple guys that like won all the awards at the end of the year. I'm not even talking about sports awards. I'm talking about like academic awards. They won all of them. Then there were a few character awards. And I'd be sitting there at the end of the year. The only people invited to attend, packed out sanctuary, were like the parents of the kids getting an award. So I was often sitting next to one of my best friends, Mike Williams. He never won anything, poor guy. Great guy. Had to be. He had to be a great guy because he didn't have any other choice if he was going to succeed at life. So he was a great guy. And but I always felt bad because his parents were never there. And then if my parents were there, it was like for some random like award. Like I was always sitting there going like, okay, I'm never going to get that academic award. But like there's some of these character awards that if I would just try a little bit harder throughout the year to like really be like welcoming and kind to some of these teachers I don't like, I bet I'll get that award. And every year I would kind of go through in my mind, kind of good-hearted, but kind of that like, you know, fleshy, self-serving kind of thing that you're working out as a young human. And then I'd get to the next year and like no character award. I did get like the band award in like 7th grade. And I know, like, you don't know if you're allowed to laugh at that because it's not supposed to be like a joke. It's good. I was the top 7th grade trombone player in North Carolina. I wasn't proud of that. Maybe I should have been, but I was just upset that I was missing like my basketball tournaments for that. But I was competitive. The reason why I was so good at trombone was because the second best trombone player in the state was second chair. And she, currently, her and her husband are the leaders at the International House of Prayer. Believe it or not. Weird connection. She challenged me every week, Heboisa, and I practiced just so I could beat her. And that's the only reason why I was good at trombone. So I found that like you can really work hard at some things that you're like somewhat good at. Athletics, it's hard. If you don't have a couple other things going for you, you can work really hard, and you're still not the best. And so in 8th grade, I think it was 8th grade, I got the PE award. And Brentley Kellum like was snickering and making fun of me as I got it because he was by far the best athlete and should have got the award, and I shouldn't have. But the coach, Coach Ehrman, gave me the award because I tried hardest. I still got like nerves before we had like the opening warm-up to like see who would win, to run around the track like 3 times. I'm like, I have to win that. That's why I got that award. Not very impressive, not because I was great at anything, but But the reason why I got that award, and that was easier than some of the other awards, was because I cared so much about silly things like sports. That competitive thing was natural. I loved it. Like, I loved it. If you fall in love with things, it's way easier. And so here's just like the connection I'm trying to make. This couple right here, you can look at them on the outside, and it's kind of obnoxious. They look perfect. Their son is like more than perfect. It looks perfect. It's like almost kind of like, did AI create your son? Like, what's? They announced number 2. There's a little part of me that goes, I hope number 2 doesn't look so perfect. No, just kidding. I don't really hope that. What I love about them, though, is that no one's life is perfect, and they've been the most front-footed. They've invested in community, and when they need their community, they tell us. I know their life, and that it's perfect because it's so imperfect. It's perfect because God covers it, and there's a whole lot of things that are just real, like every single one of us. Thank you for sharing that with us. And so with community today, this isn't about they got like some award as they left. The camel wasn't their award and their trophy. It's not a trophy. That camel's not a trophy. That's really the only thing of that stupid illustration I'm trying to give you to show you. This isn't about trophy. The reason why we're honoring them today is because they fell in love with God's version of community. And everything they gave was towards that end. What messed me up most last night was we had a little party for them last night. What hit me was kind of this, like the simple things. People, we remember we had, maybe the best wedding ever been to. It's because we all needed it. It was like kind of illegal going on at the end of COVID. Just felt like we're doing all the right things in the wrong ways. It was Orange County, so it was like we were allowed to, but it was, I don't know, it was weird. And great things like that. Loved dedicating your son, all these things. But, the stuff that messes me up is how much they care about, like, throwing cable at 7 a.m. for years before leading a team on sound or contending for the mom's room or the young adults that they hosted in their home. The thousands of dollars that they put into their community group just because they loved it. Never asking for a dime. This is why I was supposed to do this at the end, because I was like, this is going to be a stupid mess. Here's the thing. You fall in love with the right things, life is going to work out just fine. We're not a club to find friends. You will find friends here when you just fall in love with Jesus and his church and figure out how community is an extension and expression of what is happening in eternity with this King Jesus. And how does this relate to my daily life in throwing cable and nursing a child and hosting a group? If we commit to going back to this, what do we love and why? And can I love the right things imperfectly, but keep going back to the right things in the right direction? If you let that anchor you, you'll probably get a lot of silly camel awards throughout your life. And if you're not recognized by humankind, you will be recognized in heaven. And so let's just let that re-anchor us this morning. Here's what we're going to do. Short message. There's this thing I think called the Great Reversal. Kerry Newhoff has a podcast. He was a former church pastor. He was sharing about how in the past, content was plentiful. Currently, content was scarce, Content is everywhere. You go online, you can get the best messages on earth anytime you want. It doesn't matter if it's church-wise or otherwise, leadership, blah, 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 blah. Currently, content is plentiful. Community is scarce. It used to be plentiful. So just get this. Content was scarce. Community was plentiful. If you wanted a sermon, you had to go to church. Currently, we're realizing content is absolutely abundant and community is scarce in our lives. I can hear better preaching on my phone than in person. I know that doesn't apply to me in this church, but everywhere else. Does apply. And even if I do a decent job, somebody else across the world's doing better. And you can just go through the highlight reel and someone else is having the best sermon of their life right now. And I'm still competing with the 7th grade version of myself. No. You cannot download someone that knows you. You can't download someone that knows your kids, someone to take you to dinner, someone that notices that something's wrong. You can't download someone that'll pray with you until there's a breakthrough. So this isn't about like, oh, we're lonely and need friends because community is scarce out there. That actually is a lot what the world is dealing with. But we're not just saying, come on in, we can be your friend. I do want us to be people's friends. I want this to be the issue. Something underneath the loneliness is actually forming the people in this world and you and I if we're not careful. We've been discipled into a false independence. And we're looking at freedom like something like nobody gets to tell me who I am. And I get to decide what I believe. Or even if those things are not your issue, it's like I want to be free to live however I want to live, to make as much money as I can make, or just to like have endless choice, and it's crushing us. Ultimately, the issue is like if you still think your life belongs to you, or you're living in a way that you don't say that my life belongs to me, but you live like your life belongs to you. You will never find joy, you'll never find purpose, you'll never find community, really. You'll never find what you're really in love with, because you only know what you really love when you lay your life down for it. That starts with marriage, but it's why Christ calls the church his bride, what he laid his life down for. And everything we're doing is following an example of what will you lay your life down for. And there's a really good reason why we resist. We want to think that we don't have to belong to anybody. No one has a claim on my life. I don't owe anybody anything. Nobody gets to inconvenience me. And then we ask, why are we so alone? So here's the main question. This is the only question we're really asking. What if our obsession with independence is actually making us less free? We're obsessed with independence. And don't just look at the people on the other side of some political or ideological spectrum. You and me. I'm obsessed with independence, and so are you. How does that obsession make us less free? Exodus 19, 1-6. We're going to be in a series on Exodus this fall. The next 3 weeks, I just want to give us teasers, and then we're going to get deeper into the passages into the fall. Let me read Exodus 19, 1-6. On the 3rd new moon, after the people of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that day, they came into the wilderness of Sinai. They set out from Rephidim and came into the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. Wilderness is going to be a big theme and picture all fall. There Israel encamped before a mountain, while Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him out of the mountain, saying, "Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob and tell the people of Israel, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice, keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel." So, for context, if you don't understand, Israel, the whole Old Testament is essentially God establishing this family of Israel. Not for them to be better than everyone else, but for them to be a signpost and an invitation for the entire world. This is what God is like, and he's establishing a family that he wants you into. Did you know that the Israelites, after 400 years of slavery in Egypt, they didn't have a pure bloodline? They were, in fact, a bunch of essentially immigrants from all over that ancient Near East world that had come to Egypt over 400 years and been slaves. no bloodline. And then God rescues them. He raises up Moses. They have the Passover, the Red Sea, the wilderness, and Sinai. If you don't know the story, you can go back into Exodus and get familiar. We'll do that together this fall. Here's the point. Before you hear about the things like the Ten Commandments, which is a lot of misunderstandings about what that means and what they were and how they are still relevant for the day, but before God tells them how to live, what God does is he tells them what he has done and who they are becoming. What he's done and who they're becoming. And then he's essentially doing this. And this is for you and I today. The wilderness of these people, the exodus out of slavery to get to the promised land. So the whole story is like, I'm going to take you out of slavery. I want to give you a promised land. But in between, will you be able to sustain my blessing and the responsibility I give? We ask so much from God, and we think he's holding out on us. He's not holding out on them. What happens is they're not ready. He wants them each to be a kingdom of priests. What that means is every single one of them have access and closeness to him, like the priests do, ministering intimately to him. And they say, no, Moses, you go on our behalf. When they have spies to go into the promised land, the spies are afraid, and they say, this is a bad idea. They don't trust the one that set them free from the most powerful army on earth at the time. They still have slavery in their heart, and he can't entrust anything to a slave mentality. So the whole wilderness is about forming them. And it still hits us. How do we get set free? It doesn't matter if this is spiritual, emotional, physical, whatever it is. How do you get free from slavery, into family, and for the world? It was always for the sake of the world, into a family, from slavery. So that's what we're looking for. 3 just little points, and then we're going to cry again, have communion, and go home. From slavery, into family, for the world. From slavery, freedom begins with rescue. It's not about independence. Look at verse 4. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt. So he's saying Israel did not liberate themselves. Israel didn't set Israel free. So the story of Exodus is not about people finally discovering their inner strength and then breaking free. That's a lot of what the world wants to tell us, is if you just find your inner strength, then you can break free from it. There's certain things like that. Like if you can't get up at 7 a.m., that is kind of like an inner strength. Congratulations if you can actually get up at 7. Now there's a lot of things that people that can't. It's probably a lot deeper than that, right? There's probably a lot of emotional wounds or whatever baggage is, unless you have a teenager. Then they just actually need to be physically hit, I've found. And then that usually works. The boys, not the girls. I use emotional like abuse for the girls. I'm just kidding. I don't hit them or abuse them emotionally. So the thing is people finally discovered their inner strength and break free? No, it's these helpless, surrendered slaves are being set free. That's what happened. God never says, look what you did to Egypt. He says, look what I did. The only being in eternity that can be arrogant is God himself. And he's not being arrogant. Arrogant is inflating what you've done. He's just reminding them where strength comes from. Look what I did. I carried you on eagle's wings. He's not being egotistical. He's showing them that they need to be recipients before they can be participants. They can't participate if they can't receive. And so what's it showing? You can't break free without understanding the order. Grace always comes first. Your surrender to grace, his power, not yours, has to come first. That will be a cycle in your life. If you are stuck, go back to that grace over your life. It has to come first. Freedom isn't I don't need anybody. The freedom of Exodus is there's freedom, and that equals admitting that I cannot rescue myself. And that's why independence can become its own kind of slavery, where I have to save myself, I have to define myself, construct myself, provide everything for myself, prove myself, and then hold everything together all by myself. It's an amazing cycle, isn't it? Does anyone else feel that pressure? Or is that just me? Yeah. Every day, every week. And it's exhausting. And ultimately, the first good news is it's impossible. That's point 1. Point 2 then, Into family, what does that look like? Into family means God doesn't merely bring us out, he brings us to himself. That's a nice churchy phrase. What does that mean? Again, verse 4, he brought you to myself and brought you to myself. It's the heart of the entire Exodus story. Out of Egypt to God, out of Egypt to him. It's not a destination about like a geographical location as much as the promised land. We want it to be that. So then we start, is my promised land Nashville? Is my again, it's never in my notes. It just comes out like a demon. Sorry, not Nashville. Austin, Atlanta, Miami, whatever it is, whatever your promised land is. It's not a geographical location. The west side, it's not a location. The beach, San Diego, whatever. Whatever's slightly better than Pasadena, the better rate and tax structure. I don't know what it is for you. Your promised land is not geography. He goes, I brought you to me. To me. Set my people free, Moses would say over and over again. You'll start to read the story, and there's this repeating thing. Set my people free so they can worship me, know me, engage with me. He wants to know you. The wilderness is about knitting together from slavery into a family to God, to belong. Not I belong to nobody, to belong to him. Christians, the first thing that's different is not that I don't belong to anybody, is I belong to him. I belong to the right one. And then I can finally belong rightly to someone else. The key to your relationships, if you're struggling in your marriage, or you can't get married, or you don't want to be married, or you just want to have healthy relationships, you can't belong in a friendship well if you don't belong rightly first and foremost in your identity with the one true God. This is what Christians learn. What I learn in my relationship with God overflows into every other relationship. I become a better leader. I become a better follower and employee because I don't have to survive because I'm already secure in my first relationship. My first lesson of belonging is him and him alone. And that's why we go back to Exodus over and over again throughout church history. It's because we have to learn the same lesson they did. We think we're better than them. We think they're idiots. We're the same. He calls them my treasured possession. They don't feel treasured. A kingdom, a holy nation. But notice, he's using communal language, not individual language. We love our individual language. God, give me a new name. And then I want to sit in Daddy God's lap and let him like speak that new name over me and my little jewels and possessions and all this. I'm actually fine with that. All that good stuff of just like letting God speak life over you. But first, your identity is this. It's communal. He gets them out of slavery so he can form them into a family. And you'll never really fully receive your individual identity and words from God if you don't see yourself a part of his family. And the gospel is always because we can't create this family in our own strength. We can't create real friendship in our own strength. We're still us. And we want belonging until it's super inconvenient. We want to be vulnerable, until there's something I don't want you to really know about that part of my past or present or last night. Time. I'm not sure I have time. Or I definitely have time. But do they have time for me? Do they have enough time to deal with my failures, my flaws? And our failures then drive us crazy. It causes us to wall up, to retreat, to isolate. And then we say we want community. We do, because every single one of us, we want the community. One of the things we want to invite you into this fall is not just do community because it's fall and every church on the planet is inviting you into community groups. Do community because you realize you want it, you need it, and if you don't love it, you want to love it because of him, because you belong to him first into a family where he says, this is the way I will form you, this is the way I will use you, this is the way I will send you, and this is the way I will bless you. But we want community as long as it never costs us our independence. We want it as long as we can still be completely in charge of our life, of our schedule, of who comes and who doesn't come. And it can't just be try harder. So the goal is like, hey, if it's been tough, just try harder. Just do it again. We need another Exodus is what the issue is. Every single one of us. And Jesus is always the one that every single thing is pointing to throughout the whole story. The Exodus story is still pointing to him. Jesus is always the greater Exodus. So I'm going to go to 1 Peter really quickly. Chapter 2, verse 9, just a couple verses, says this. Peter deliberately, who wrote 1 Peter, he's deliberately using the language of Exodus 19, and he's giving it to a local church 2,000 years ago. And he says this, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Just notice what he's saying. Chosen people, royal priesthood, holy nation, special possession. I mean, this is what God is like, and this is what he thinks about you. This is what he thinks about his family. And he's saying, once you were not a people, but now you are a people of God. That's not generic. That's the gospel. The gospel is that Jesus doesn't just merely save me. It's that Jesus creates us, and he's the greater Moses. That one that sets them free. This is Jesus. He's the greater Moses. He's the true Passover lamb. He enters slavery, sin, death, and the grave, and then he leads us ultimately to an exodus. He goes to the cross, and he's cast outside like an outsider. He's rejected, abandoned, so that the people who were not a people can become his people. So that the rejected, the ones that nobody else wants, they got no trophies. Everybody. And you can only receive it through grace. And that's the only way the gospel answers the question that's at the heart of all this that we started with. My independence can't be conquered by trying harder. And it can only be dealt with when I realize that I already belong to Jesus. That's where my belonging is. And I don't need something else to save me. I'm finally free to love you because of him. And when we start to understand what Jesus has done, then I can live not for myself, not out of survival, but for others, for the sake of the world. And that's the final point. God will never form his people for themselves. It can never be a self-serving mission. You will be depressed if your life is about yourself. You will only find fulfillment when you find what it is you will lay your life down for. And here's what we wanted to go after. Exodus 19, what does this mean? A kingdom of priests. He never forms them for himself, for themselves. Why priests? The priests show us a relationship to God. When he says a kingdom of priests, he's wanting you to know what kind of relationship is he inviting every single person in his countercultural family into. God plus people. It goes all the way back to the father of the faith, Abraham. All people on earth will be blessed through you. That's what he's going after. And here's the temptation, is that even community at church can become our therapy. Therapy culture can kill us. Don't go to therapy, stay where you're at. Go to therapy, twist therapy, and pull it away from kingdom. So we have so many amazing therapists in the house that anchor us and remind us, like, therapy is good, but it also can be the world. When it's anchored on Jesus, so good. Don't let community become your therapy. Find your people. Find your tribe, all that stuff. Find somewhere you feel supported, but community it can't just be for you. It can't just be about myself. We need people, we need prayer, we need meals. When you have a baby, whatever. It's like when you're sick, we need all of that stuff, but it can't end right there. It has to go towards something. Everything God gives to us eventually is going to become something that he wants to give through us. So he's never giving you something so it can stay there. And you know, no one wants that anyway. The mindset is there enough? Do I even have something to give? Will he really use me? When he gives me something, is there going to be something tomorrow? And you'll see the Israelites, they don't get it. It's when he provides literally every day manna from heaven for them to pick on the ground. They want to store it away because they don't believe he's going to give it tomorrow. It's the human condition, surviving. And we're entering some weird times. Some of us are worried about our survival, our provision, and all these things as like it's the most normal thing in the world. It's a test and it's an invitation. What kind of community, what kind of family do you belong to? And he always gives to you because he wants to give through you. He wants to use you, and he will not waste a thing. You guys have stories of healing in your life. You have stories of things that have transpired at your table, through your giving, through your careers, through your suffering and your pain and your loss and your questions and your prayers for breakthrough, through the way you pursue freedom, through the ways that you've learned to walk with the Spirit of God. Every single one of you is carrying countless testimonies and stories about the activity of God. And you know, if you're like me, it's like when I need those stories most, I can't think of a single thing God's ever done in my life. How is that possible? That I can wake up and go like, God, you've never done anything like this for me. And then I have one friend that just reminds me, Christian, you idiot. I know more things about what happened to you than you can remember right now. And if you can't remember, why don't you just start in the Word? This is a sword, and it's a powerful tool, and it's a weapon because it reminds you of truth when you're living under the weight of lies or forgetfulness. So even this community in this church, and this is how I want to land, you're giving a gift. You're giving gifts. Every single one of you have gifts, whether you know it or not. And at points, we'll go through and give you your spiritual gifts assessment and all that stuff. I love that stuff. But also, it can be distracting. You know that you can't help but release your gifts, whether you know what they are or not. If you are present with people, your gifts will come out. If you don't know what they are, there are people in this house that don't need you to take an assessment test to tell you what they are. Because your presence activates your gifts through other people. So when you have a gift, you can do two things. And Jesus talks about this. You can like bury it in the ground. Bad idea. Or you can take a risk and you can use it. That's called stewardship. Using them. When you do that, you're living on mission. And when you live on mission, you can't be in slavery. There's gifts, there's stewarding those gifts, and there's mission. That's really the entire life cycle. And the issue is just, are you living for yourself or others? Survival or not? This couple right here, Lindsay and Alec, they invested this way. And there's this beautiful progression of their own life in our house. Daniel Phillips, one of our elders, meets Lindsay at a dog park, invites her to church. She's welcomed into a community. She's known. And then Alec knows her. That's a biblical word for marriage. Okay, never mind. No one got that. Then there's belonging. They belonged in this community. They poured themselves in. They became part of our story. They lived in other people's homes. They invited people into their home. They received. They gave. They gave endlessly. Not out of obligation, out of love, out of purpose, out of giftedness and mission. Not everything was like, the gift of laying cable isn't because he like lays it with like some sort of special wrist action. That's not always the gift. The gifts come out in the other spaces with the people. And they had amazing gifts. Leadership, systems, building, the board, unbelievable. The picture of what it looks like that Ephesians 4 calls, we're meant to, apostles, pastors, evangelists, teachers, we're meant to equip saints, you all and myself, first and foremost, saints to do the work of ministry. The professionals are not meant to do the work. They're meant to equip the church to do the work. They are such a beautiful example of equipped saints doing ministry. That's the high water mark for every single one of us, myself included. And you lived sent, and we send you. And it's going to look different for every single one of you. But the movement is always going to be the same. God blesses you, he forms you, and then he gives your life away. The team can start to come up because I need to close this thing. But I just want to briefly say, this fall at Frontier, we're operating in a larger framework from this, like coming from, into, and for that I started with. How does God actually form this kind of people? That's what we're going today. But we're going to look at community, formation, and presence. The fact that we need each other in community, that we need practices to be formed. We need to step into them. I don't become like Jesus by accident. Community doesn't just happen either. I can't become like Jesus alone. And then presence, we need God because Christianity is never going to be about self-improvement. It's life with God. That's what I want to frame the next few weeks so that we can step into something together for the sake of the world. And our community group vision this fall. I know it's hot in here. We're almost done. We have two directions that the air can flow, and I guess it was flowing the wrong way. We fixed it. But just those of you that are still scarred by the school auditoriums last summer, I promise you we have air conditioning, and we're figuring it out. Okay. Come back next week. Here's our community group vision this fall. We're putting so much into these communities not because we care that we're just like every other church and we've got like friends that are in small spaces. It's the fact that everything that we're looking at in the story of God is where we find our own story. We don't need to fill another meeting. And we don't need to just address loneliness with friendships. We want to become a church where people don't merely hear about the life of Jesus because they came on some Sundays. We want to become a people that learn to live this on every frontier. That's why we have a name, not to be cheesy, because the point is to send you out. Some of that can be impressive in this town. Some of you will have a stage. Most of you will have quiet. You'll have silence. You'll have isolation. Even in the midst of your horrific commutes in a car, you're going to have moments where you're choosing daily, how am I going to live this frontier of the two people that I'm working with on this project right now, of the one child I'm assigned to in this stage of toddlership, of a roommate that I can't stand that I'm praying will leave, of a career that's not taken off, of a distraction about my promised land being another geographical location. Let him meet you in your wilderness. Let him form you in the wilderness. You won't have to worry about the promised land. He is way more ready to fulfill promises than you and I are to live in. When I realize that God isn't holding out on me, completely changes my relationship to him. Some of you just feel like God's holding out on you, and don't take my word for it. I just want to encourage you to meet him in the rawness, in the anger. Every single person that God honors is a kind of person. Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all these examples is showing you like you can have the kind of relationship with God where you cry out to him, you wrestle with him. You're real with him in a way that God actually wants. The wrestle, the fight, so that you can fall in love with him and nothing else. Nothing else will compete. I need to close this. Here's what we're going to do. Just a couple questions. Here's how I want to invite us to practice this. We're going to have communion as we close. The service will be over. You can linger as long as you want. Don't forget we have tacos afterwards. Please stay and enjoy. But as we close today, this team will play. You can hang out as long as you want. You can go as soon as you want. But there's three questions that I want us to look at that goes from slavery into family and for the world. The three questions are this. Am I receiving the family Jesus died to give me? First and foremost. What does that mean? It's not about am I trying hard enough? We don't want you to try harder. It looks more like, do I understand grace and what that looks like in my life? And am I receiving grace? Do I actually believe that I belong to Jesus? Am I allowing myself to really be known by him and others? Or am I receiving Christians, brothers, sisters into my life intentionally or not? That's the issue. You don't have to belong to yourself anymore. Secondly, for the world, what has God given you and given me that he wants to give through me and through you? What's he given you that he wants to give through you? Some of you, it's like you've been nervous about utilizing your home and the table. You don't think it's fancy enough, big enough, or whatever. Some of you have other gifts. The gift of encouragement, the gift of intercession, the gift of presence. It doesn't have to be complicated. People aren't transformed by impressive gifts. They're transformed by consistent people that show up for them when no one else did. Can you be that kind of person? You can't be that kind of person with grit. You can be that kind of person if you fall in love with the right things. Remember your story. Remember how he's forged you. Some of you need to remember the leadership gifts he's put in you. Some of you need to remember the suffering you've been through and that someone else needs to hear your story of suffering, your story of freedom. Who might encounter Jesus someday because you chose to deeply belong today in August of 2026. And finally, this couple, we don't give Lindsay and Alec an award, like I said. We give thanks for the grace on your life. Thank you that you fell in love with Jesus and you gave yourself to him and to his people and then allowed the Lord to give your life away. Keep going. Keep giving. Keep building. That's the Exodus story. That's the entire story. That's the story for you and I. Would you stand with me and let's close? On the night he was betrayed, Jesus took bread in the cup and he says, my body broken for you, my blood shed for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Lord Jesus, every story leads to you. May my life, my imperfect, broken life, be an offering to you. May we remember your grace. Remember the gifts you've given us. Remember where you've taken us out of, who you've made us belong to. As we build this community, may it never be about ourselves, always about belonging to you first. Knowing that you will send us out, that you will use us despite ourselves, and you will build your house, and you will make us a missional people onto every frontier until you call us home. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.